Chair Gray, we are live.
Welcome everyone to our first meeting of the spring semester of 2025. We welcome back all of our students, faculty, staff, administrators. We're excited to begin our spring semester, and as we did with the fall semester, we're aligning the start of our Board of Regents along with the academic year so we can start at the same time. I'd like to ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Gray.
Present.
Regent Balducci. Regent Bloom. Student Regent Erlington. Regent James. Regent Japanen.
Present.
Regent Porth. Student Regent Sanchez.
Present.
Regent Santiago.
Present.
Regent Stewart. Absence is noted. Regent Wright. Regent Yang. Our ex officios, Professor Cunningham.
Present.
Professor Sasanker. Absence is noted. Commissioner Bartolomeo. Absence is noted. Commissioner Jutani. Absence is noted. Commissioner O'Keefe has sent his designee, Chief of Staff Stuber. Absence is noted. Commissioner Russell Tucker.
Present.
Chief Workforce Officer Valeries. Undersecretary Casamento. And our presidents, President Maduco. Interim President Smith.
Present.
President Toro. Interim President Singh. President Klonowski. President Ismaili. Chair Gray, you have a quorum.
Thank you so kindly, and thanks for everyone for being here. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. I'd like to now turn over the meeting to Chancellor Cheng for his remarks.
Thank you, Chair Gray. Before we welcome everyone back to the spring 2025 semester, I'm afraid we have to start on a very sad note. Yesterday, we learned of the passing of a student at Eastern Connecticut State University. A message went out to the Eastern community earlier this morning. In respect to the privacy of the family, we will share no details. But with all the ups and downs in our work, in the world these days, there's nothing more sobering, in my opinion, than the loss of life, and especially in our work in higher education when the loss of a student's life. So on behalf of the Board of Regents and the Chancellor's Office, we are so saddened by this. It's a tragedy. And we offer not only our condolences, but our support to the Eastern community during this really challenging time. So with that said, and again, through the frame and lens of the work that we all try to do every day in higher education, right? Doing good work to try to help people. I am happy to report that last week, new initiative got off the ground for Charter Oak State College. They launched the Connecticut Online AI Academy that is in partnership with Google. It's a transformative initiative. It's available to all Connecticut residents 18 and older at no cost, and it was created to equip Connecticut residents with the foundational skills needed to thrive in an AI-driven workforce. So congratulations to President Klonowski and his provost, David Ferreira. They did an incredible amount of work on this, doing good work, right reasons, right way, and they got it done. Very, very proud of you and your team. Tonight, I'm going to be attending the Eastern Connecticut State University's first nursing white coat ceremony that President Ismaili was generous enough to invite me to. 28 students will take the professional oath and receive their white coat. So I can't imagine how thrilling that's going to be, and I'm really just so happy I'm going to be there. The nursing program that these students are going to be moving on from, that was created through a partnership with Hartford Healthcare. right? And again, created with the faculty and the leaders at Eastern. So again, these are things that wouldn't happen unless folks just made them happen. So we're grateful to Hartford Healthcare as partners, but of course, grateful to the faculty and staff at Eastern who had that vision, who had understood the need. They put in the work, they used all their time and energy to do it, and they made it work. So I'm really happy that I'm going to be there to celebrate with them and support them. Southern Connecticut State was recently awarded the 2025 NCAA Minority Opportunities Athletic Association Award for Diversity and Inclusion. This is a big deal. This is a really big deal. It's a testament to Southern's unwavering commitment and interim President Dr. Smith's unwavering commitment to equity and belonging. And this spring, under President Toro's leadership, Central is introducing 4 new programs: Systems Engineering, a graduate certificate, an MBA in Sports Management, undergraduate certification in Business Project Management, and undergraduate certification in Database Management to meet the growing needs of students. Not just student demand, right? These are programs that are germane and salient with industry, with jobs, not just a specific industry, but every company that's out there today is looking for this kind of talent. That's kind of high quality, accessible, affordable education that Central and all of our institutions are providing. So again, congratulations, President Toro, to you and your team, again, for creating this faculty-driven curriculum and work. And again, at Central's Assistant Dean, Barbara Budaj, did I just butcher her name? Barbara, is she here? Someone can yell at me later, I'm sorry. But Barbara's earned the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science and Teaching, the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science and Teaching. This award recognizes outstanding teachers for their contributions to the teaching and learning of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's administered by the National Science Foundation on behalf of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. So again, our faculty are receiving national awards. That is such an incredible accomplishment and achievement. I hope it's something that we can all appreciate and rally around, and just know that, again, our folks are second to no one. So investing in our institutions, I've always said it, it's an investment in the people of Connecticut, it's an investment in the state's future. And our students are from Connecticut, they're educated here, and they will stay and live and work here. Connecticut cannot achieve its goals without a strong CSCU system, not just its institutions, the entire system has to be strong. We're proud to be the engine of economic development and social mobility. So in that spirit, with the 2025 legislative session underway, CSU and the Board of Regents will be focusing on 3 key areas to drive student success through the ACT framework: accessibility, completion, and talent. These efforts will increase student success in and out of the classroom, steady financial footing, and ensure we continue to provide students with the resources they need to thrive. Conversations are happening across the system right now to bolster and girder this work through shared governance and with deep faculty and staff engagement. Chair Gway and I have answered many questions with many groups of faculty and staff, collective bargaining leaders, and so on. We're here to be as transparent, forward, and open as possible in that conversation, because we know that this is not an easy thing to do, right? And so we want to be at the table with you to really answer those questions. So I look forward to working with you all, our institutional leaders, our students, the faculty, the staff, and of course our board. Thank you for continuing to be supportive in every way that you can on enacting these policies and approaches and ensure that we continue to be a part of the state's growth strategy. That's my conclusion.
Thank you, Chancellor Cheng. I wanted to take this opportunity to follow up on the expense issue. On December 18th, Comptroller Scanlon released his report to the governor on CSCU financial practices. Governor Lamont requested that the Office of the State Comptroller examine related financial records, practices, and procedures to identify any potential violations in October. The governor also tasked OSC to develop recommendations to resolve any broad issues identified in this report. Upon release, Chancellor Cheng was very responsive and is committed to reviewing all recommendations with a clear commitment to implement stronger controls, policies, and comprehensive training. As Chancellor Cheng has stated, these recommendations will support the goal of accountability and transparency across the system and protect taxpayer dollars and student funds. As the oversight authority of CSCU, this board is directly engaged with the Office of the State Comptroller. On January 8th, Elise Wright, Chair of our Audit Committee, Karen Buffkin, our CSU General Counsel, and I met with Comptroller Scanlon and his team. We requested this meeting to understand the findings, discuss the recommendations, and commit ourselves to oversight on the actions being taken. The system office owns this, and we'll make sure the changes that are appropriate are implemented. The system office has hired a chief compliance officer, Cameron Liston, directly across from me. Cameron is going to lead our efforts and has the background, temerity, and understanding to get this done. I am very confident in Cameron and the support he is getting and the leadership he is committed in this endeavor. The system office is working diligently on adopting and amending policies for all stakeholders. A policy committee has been established to ensure all policy recommendations are clear and consistent with our mission. They will clear policy and ownership and enforcement. The policy committee will also review the process for establishing board policy. Board of Regents is the policy authority of this system. We will start with P-card policy and then evaluate other policies needed throughout the system. Today we have no consent agenda or any votable items. We'll be hearing updates from two special task forces, Regent Yang on our online education opportunities and President Maduko on healthcare. Before we hear from Regent Yang and President Maduko, Chancellor Cheng will provide an update from his meeting with the Higher Education Financial Sustainability Advisory Board. Chancellor Cheng.
Thank you, Chair Guay. Can we pull up the slide deck, please? That bigger because I can't see. There we go. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss. We do have a packed agenda. I'm going to move pretty quickly. If any regents have any questions, I think we'll have a few minutes to maybe address them there, and I can repeat if need be. But 2 weeks ago, next slide, please. There we go. 2 weeks ago, the system office presented in front of the legislature's Higher Education Financial Sustainability Advisory Board, HEFSAB, not the most roll off your tongue acronym, but we wanted to share this presentation with you and with the public. For the regents here, the presentation has been printed out and it's included with your meeting materials for your review. For those attending virtually, board members, the presentation was provided via email. And of course, this was a public presentation. We can make that available on our website. In the presentation, we shared how we have mitigated a significant portion of our deficit by reducing expenditures by $60 million already, identifying and addressing administrative efficiencies, and streamlining operations. Today, CSCU is projected to spend $100 million less than it did in FY19. Our full-time faculty are down by 9%. Our full-time staff are down by 8%. Part-time faculty are down by 17%. Part-time staff are down by 22%. We are working to align staffing to meet the needs of our current student population. This is what has been asked of us by state leaders, by OPM, and by others. And so we want to demonstrate that efforts have been made at institutions and across the system to have better calibration. For the biennium, we are requesting $23 million in FY26 and $21.6 million in FY27 from the General Assembly to balance the budget. This does not cover any potential wage increases for the workforce, as we would seek support to cover those increases, and our budget request also assumes that we will freeze tuition again for the following academic year. I want to thank Regent Balducci, Richard Balducci, because he, if any of you have been following, has been a real champion for this kind of work. Freezing tuition, tuition relief, and again, his experience, his acumen, his wisdom has really guided us in this path. So thank you specifically, Regent Balducci. The funding we're advocating for is going to help to continue to support high quality, affordable, accessible education that we are providing to 85,000 students across Connecticut. Institutions collectively, the system makes an estimated $22.5 billion annual economic impact. That is an enormous economic impact. And so it is not hyperbole when we say that the state cannot achieve its goals without a strong CSCU. That's now and that's into the future. And that's something we're incredibly proud of, and all of us should be incredibly proud of. Students learn here, they earn here, and they go on to pursue careers here at companies like Aetna, Eversource, Electric Boat, Hartford Healthcare, Pratt & Whitney, the Hartford Travelers, Amazon, Collins Aerospace, IBM, Nuvance, Yale New Haven Health. So our students are everywhere in all these different industries, and they're making a huge impact. Next slide, please. Try to go a little more quickly. There's a lot of information there. So student enrollment is up from fall 23 to fall 24 by 4.4%. The increase is due to, I would argue, and that's what our work is showing, the collective efforts in eliminating barriers and creating more access. We're seeing great success with the Connecticut Auto Admissions Program. Program is flat out working. From January 24 to January of 25, CSCU applications rose from 3,259 to 13,329. 71% of students eligible for the CAP program are choosing to apply to CSCU. So this program that was created in partnership with the legislature, it's working, and we should feel very, very good about that. Last year, the board also unanimously approved our general education transfer credit alignment policy, which eliminates barriers of transferring gen ed credits between 2 and 4 year CSCU institutions. It eases the path for CT State students to seamlessly transfer gen ed credits to our CSUs without credit loss, to complete their bachelor's degrees, and successfully enter the work. Next slide, please. CT State. 2024 was a historic year for CT State. It celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the consolidation of the 12 community colleges into one singularly accredited institution. As you've heard President Maduco say, it is the largest community college in the Northeast. What a massive, massive endeavor. 1 in 4 undergrad students in Connecticut are CT State students. You can see that their student body is incredibly diverse. I will always say that our diversity is a superpower. It is a strength. We're expanding, working with the legislature to expand the Marianne Hanley Award, which is also known as PACT, to include prospective students who recently attended college. And it's opened up the door to so many students. Tens of thousands of students have benefited. As you can see, since 2019, $56 million in scholarships have been awarded. System work. This is a shared success for sure. Since 2021, the system office has managed over $80 million in federal and private funds to support efforts that impact every institution and every campus. So I want to just shine light on a few of these efforts. We continue to manage on behalf of the state and the Office of Workforce Strategy, the CT Health Horizons program. It's a 3-year, $35 million initiative, and ultimately, it is benefiting so many different institutions in terms of developing mental health and social health well-being programs, helping students to enter those programs, helping to build out the programs and support faculty. The goal is simple: grow and diversify the next generation of healthcare professionals, particularly nurses and social workers. As of November 2024, CSCU alone has issued 648 scholarships, and our institutions play the largest role in the traditional Bachelor's of Science in Nursing delivery. So in the first year, 167 nursing scholarships were issued. In the second year, 481 nursing scholarships were issued. So again, that's 650, almost 650 new nurses who are going to be coming through that program if we can just make sure we help them succeed. Earlier this year, we announced a system-wide partnership with Let's Get Ready to help ensure more students attain their college degrees. Let's Get Ready provides virtual near-peer coaching as a system-wide intervention that will eventually scale to support 10,000 CSU students over the next 3 years. So today, we are pleased to share that 10 of the 12 CT State campuses have started enrolling in the program, and that Central, Southern, and Western are set to start enrollment in spring of 25. So let's get ready. We'll be meeting with President Ismaili and his team at Eastern very soon. We're going to make sure they get into that as well. CSCU continues to do great work through its Gear Up program from the United States Department of Education. It's assisting in state efforts to increase the number of low-income students prepared to enter and succeed in post-secondary education. This is a 7-year grant that was awarded in 2019. As of January 2025, 1,650 students have participated in PSAT or SAT workshops, and 3,421 have participated in dual and college enrollment programs have been earned. I'm sorry, I butchered that. 3,421 college/dual enrollment credits have been earned by students, which again is a very big deal. These are examples of what real systems do. They're bringing together the power of the collective and scaling it positively to impact thousands of people. Next slide, please. Okay, the system office has been restructured different phases in an effort to reduce redundancies and gain efficiencies, and ultimately to reduce the size and try to save money. For instance, the Office of Academic and Student Affairs in the past year has undergone a major reorganization that eliminated the system provost position, and it restructured our engagement and services to better partner with and support the needs of our institutions. Again, we don't teach students, we don't enroll students, but ultimately we are here to support the institutions and the folks that do that work. As you heard from Chair Gway, we've established the Office of Compliance to increase accountability and transparency, and we continue to realign shared services to meet the needs of the state. HR shared services has been realigned, and we have initiated conversations about the other areas of shared services right now that include IT and finance. Again, the goal is to get as many services back in front of student-facing and staff-facing positions so that people are getting what they need when they need it and not holding it here in Hartford when it's actually needed on the campus. Our 4 CSUs joined the NPSS Higher Education Coalition to support their communities by placing more college students in high-impact positions such as tutors, mentors, and at local P-12 schools. So this is a national effort. We were approached by the Department of Education through the governor's office. Ultimately, there was a decision by our institutional presidents and leadership to engage, to commit to certain goals that would put our student workers, student employees into positions that would help in these particular areas. It's a really great honor and a collective effort to be a part of that. Right now, President Smith of Southern and Dr. O'Day Stevens of the Chancellor's office are in DC at the AAC&U annual meeting, and they are on a panel with other leaders from across the country to talk about this really, really important work. In terms of leadership involvement, as you know, we hired President Ismaili. He started back in August. We're thrilled to have him here. That continues to solidify our leadership team. And also we reappointed Dr. Maduko as president of CT State Community College. So he won't be going anywhere for a while, and especially as he's on crutches, he certainly won't be running away anywhere for a while. So thank you, President Maduko. We have presidential searches underway right now at Western Connecticut State University and Southern Connecticut State University. We've also created system-wide councils, right, in ways that they didn't run. The councils include presidents, enrollment management, student service, finance, academics. Again, this is how effective systems work. You bring together the expertise of our institutions and our leaders so they can form and drive the nuance, but dedicated vision for serving our students and the respective communities. Next slide, please. One of the top priorities is the review and implementation of recommendations from the NCHEMS report that we've heard much about recently and the audit report from the Office of the State Comptroller, because this is going to further enhance accountability and increase transparency. I want to take a moment to say that I understand, especially for our board and for the folks around our system, this has not been an easy time, right? You open up a blog, you get an email newsletter, you go into a local paper, and oftentimes you see news and it's not so savory, right? And it doesn't feel good because you all are part of these institutions and doing this really hard work every day, again, to help as many people as possible. I want to tell you that these reports are going to be analyzed deeply and thoroughly by our leadership at the institutions as well as the system office and the board. And we are going to take whatever we can from these reports and we are going to use them to make us better, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to feel good every time, but whatever it takes to make the system better, we are going to use those. As Chair Gway mentioned, we've already developed drafts of a P-card policy that is in review right now with our CFOs at our institutions. Again, this is a policy that ultimately will be reviewed, edited, and approved by the board. But with full transparency, full accountability, this is the kind of work we have to do. Again, through our Office of Compliance under Cameron Liston, so we're very happy to have his expertise. And we'll be implementing a great deal of training in that space as well. These changes support the goal of accountability and transparency across the system. And over the coming months, we will continue to work with leaders, especially on implementing their 5-year sustainability plans, which will help us create a strong foundation for our colleges and our universities going forward. Because when the institutions and the system work together, we're going to succeed together. Now, we recently announced an initiative in collaboration with Central Connecticut State University aimed at achieving financial sustainability, academic excellence, and operational improvement at Western Connecticut State University. Through this initiative, which is admittedly somewhat unorthodox, the central team is collaborating with the WestCon community to analyze information and data, assess sustainability and adequacy of resources, and share best practices. So again, this work got off to a bit of a rocky start, right? We have to be honest about that. But we were just at Western yesterday, and I want to say thanks to all of the leaders at Western and at Central, faculty, the unions, the administration, for working together, working with the system office, and staying focused on those shared goals. The recommendations to strengthen Western and position it to better serve students will be based on these assessments and findings, and they will be developed in consultation with Western community. Board of Regents and I are committed to partnering with Western to ensure that these decisions align with the institution's needs and values. Next slide, please. Another way we're going to strengthen our institutions is by increasing our retention rates. We need to make sure that our students have the support and resources they need to not only complete their degree, but to complete it on time. If we look at our retention rates across our institutions, they are more or less in line with the national average. But I'm going to pose a question that is actually a challenge to all of us. Is a 70% year-to-year, first-year retention rate okay? Is that acceptable? Is it okay to just say that we are going to accept that at least 3 out of 10 students that we enroll in one semester will not be here in a year? Is it okay that we have about a 50%, 54%, 55% graduation rate, 6-year graduation rate? Is it okay to say that when we enroll 100 students, 45 out of 100 will not make it to the finish line? That's a rhetorical question, right? It is a challenge. That is a challenge we have to rise to. Because if we don't help the students by retaining them and helping them complete, then we are not doing the job that we're here to do. And I know that's a blunt, hard thing to say, but as an educator and someone who's been in this position and in this industry for a long time, I firmly, firmly believe that. We also have to continue to encourage CT State students to transfer to our CSUs. Whenever I meet a student from CT State, they say, well, what's your plan? I say, well, I'm going to transfer. I said, where are you going to go? They say, well, maybe I'll go to, they'll name some school. I said, or Southern, right? And they'll say something else. They said, or Central, right? We want to keep those students. They came here. They're already in our system. We should be the first option for them. We have to do better in terms of transfer. And the policy that the board passed is a huge, huge step forward. There are other key areas, and you see this on the slide under targeted initiatives. Enrollment stability is the system's top priority. We cannot manage our finances if we do not have strong, stable enrollment. That does not mean we're going to get enrollment back to 2010 levels. Okay, demographics will not allow that, but we have to stabilize. And that means we have to look at new places to find students, right? Because there are people out there that want education. Dual and concurrent enrollment is a top priority. Adult and professional learners. Society is changing. People are looking for more on-ramps and off-ramps to gain the credentials they need. More traditional K-12 pathways. We're talking right now with school districts about maybe doing even more direct admit programs. We have to look at people who have some college but no degree. In Connecticut, there are over 300,000 individuals who have some college credits but no degree. Some of them are very close to the finish line. We have to do a better job of reaching out to them, enticing them, bringing them back, supporting them, and then getting them across the finish line. When we do that, we're going to serve as many people as we can across the state, get them great education and training, and get them great jobs and careers, and they're going to stay here. Next slide, please. So we're going to continue to help CT State. CT State is continuing to evolve. President Maduka and his team have done an amazing job, but the job is not done. They will strive for full accreditation by 2028. The accreditation they have right now is initial accreditation, and we will be there with them every step of the way. When we make mistakes, we have to be accountable. We're going to work together to solve problems and improve in the best interests of our students and our state. As I said before, we'll continue to focus on areas of cost savings as well. We have to leverage the power of the system. We have to look at ways that we can do procurement, save money in that way, establish more partnerships for workforce development, internships, apprenticeships, and so on. And we have to continue to advocate for a balanced approach to appropriations and resource allocation. And as I mentioned earlier, these partnerships are so important, right? They're so, so important because we need our partners to be there to work with us to provide the opportunities for our students when they graduate. So in closing, let me just say this. I really want to thank our board first and foremost because, again, this is a volunteer board. They spend a massive amount of time on this system, supporting me, supporting the system, supporting our institutions. And it's not an easy road for any of us, but I think in particular for our board, it is not easy at times. I am committed to doing a better job of communicating and being clear and transparent with all of our activity. And so I hope I can continue to gain your guidance and direction in how to do that. And I also want to thank all of our faculty, our staff, our administrative leaders, because again, this is a tough road that we're on, okay? But we've got wonderful people. I will say it over and over again. Students, faculty, staff, we are second to no one. We have to continue to unify and strive together. So I'll stop there. Went a little longer than I wanted it to. With that, we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the Chancellor on the presentation? Regent Porth?
Yeah, Chancellor, can you speak a little bit more as to how this plan and this presentation supports or advances completion and actually all three parts of our goal: access, completion, and talent? Could you just spend a couple minutes reinforcing how this serves that?
Sure, sure. So again, we've had really robust conversations, especially with our faculty, staff, and labor leaders about the development of the ACT framework, right? Everything from how the pillars, so to speak, the three pillars were conceived, how the goals have been drafted, and how the institutions are currently working to craft KPIs, key performance indicators per goal. Okay, what the ACT framework is meant to do, and I think is already doing, is it allows us to tell our story succinctly, sharply, clearly, right? Because in my estimation, and this is, I was so appreciative of Chair Guay's, you know, thoughts around this. He's the one who presented this as an idea we should work on. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head because we're already doing all this work, right? And to steal Chair Guay's metaphor, right? We want to make sure the front door is as wide open as possible. Get them onto the porch, get them through the front door, and then treat them well while they are here with us. And then when they're leaving through the back door, make sure that they're getting great jobs or have excellent opportunities. And so I think this is a great, again, it's a great conceptual framework, but it's also operationalized already. And I think it's going to help us tell the story. It's going to help us have clarity at times when maybe there's so many moving pieces that it's hard to kind of take that step back. And so I just think it gives us an asset to reach back for that helps us to frame things. Thank you. I also want to say just quickly, while folks are maybe gathering some thoughts, you know, as we're going through these hard times, right, we have a new federal administration that is going to bring some unexpected things to higher education. We are already preparing for that in a multitude of ways. Our folks have been working on policy, and we're in touch with a variety of state leaders trying to make sure we're on the same page of how to address certain things. I don't want us to forget that there is great work happening every day in the classrooms, outside the classrooms with our students, right? There's magic being performed every day helping these students. And so I appreciate the opportunity to just take time to, really focus on that, focus on the really excellent work while being honest with what the path ahead still looks like. It's not going to get easier per se, but when we focus on how positive the impact is now and will continue to be as we trudge forward, I think that's very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Chancellor Chang, and thanks for all the hard work on leading these initiatives with your team and the entire system. They're all important for us, but most importantly, they are critical for student outcomes. I'll now ask Secretary of the Board, Pam Helene, to manage the public comment portion of the meeting. The board encourages public comment on matters that appear on this agenda. We're asking speakers must abide to the 3-minute rule. At the end of each speaker's allotted time, the speaker will be asked to yield to the next speaker. If there are a large number of individuals asking to speak, we ask that you consider yielding your time if the substance of your comments have been covered by previous speakers, and we will add your comments accordingly. Secretary Helene.
Thank you, Chair Guay. In addition to the 8 presenters today, 4 with us here in person and then 4 online virtually, we've received 25 letters and communications from the faculty, which have been forwarded to the regents in advance of this meeting. And in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act guidelines, as amended during the pandemic, the communications were posted on the CSCU website immediately prior to the meeting start time. And with that precursor, I'd like to welcome our first presenter, Andrew Smith. Did I say that right, Andrew? Thank you. He is a CSCU English professor. Are you ready with your 3 minutes? You may begin.
Morning, and thank you for hearing my remarks. As I said, my name is Andrew Smith. I'm a professor of English at Southern Connecticut State University and a proud member of the CSU AAUP. I teach secondary English education courses and supervise student fieldwork through which we train future generations of English teachers in Connecticut. I'm also the English department liaison for Southern's early college composition, creative writing, and literature classes taught in area high schools through dual enrollment agreements. I work with a purposefully limited number of high school English teachers whom we trained and have trained to teach 100 and 200 level English classes to students on their high school campuses. I'm speaking today against the proposal of a Charter Oak Scaling Task Force report calling for online dual enrollment courses in Connecticut secondary schools. The report correctly notes that the Northeast is far behind the West, Midwest, and South in dual and concurrent enrollment numbers. And we in Connecticut can indeed do much more to reach out to marginalized students and families to make college and university degrees more familiar and attainable to them. Online courses are not the way to do this. We're still reeling from the lost learning that happened during the full pandemic years, when students tuned out of their classes and fell behind in key subject areas, sometimes by a year or more. Now, we are proposing to use online courses to give the same students a head start on higher education. We do far better, provide far better to concentrate on giving them a quality high school education and carefully providing them with proper onboarding and initiation to college classes taught by well-qualified and integrated instructors. Async online classes will deprive high school students of experiencing what a higher education can do for them. No matter how well an async class is designed, students miss out on personal interactions and development opportunities with faculty and peers that lead to meaningful, long-term educational value. What they learn instead is that they can submit the work, check the box, and get ahead in their time in college, robbing them of the attention and support they need to be productive citizens and participants in the workforce. The paragraph on page 10 of the report devoted to this area notes the difficulties scaling up dual enrollment programs. The University of Connecticut started its DCE program in 1955, currently has more than 17,000 students enrolled, and Southern's early college enrollment has jumped to nearly 2,000 students last year. Programs in Texas, Georgia, Illinois, and elsewhere across the country are huge and usually well supported. Connecticut can do better than shifting high school students to online dual enrollment courses in the cheap. We need to invest in infrastructure and teaching that will allow a wide range of students to learn the lines between secondary and post-secondary ed in a valuable and equitable manner. I urge you to reject the proposal to use Charter Oak to provide dual enrollment classes for our high school students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next presenter is online with us, Professor Barman. Hold on a sec. I'll bring her into the meeting. Hold on, please. Professor Barman, can you check your audio and your video for me, please? Good morning. The video is good?
Yes,
Okay, excellent. Do you have your 3 minutes ready?
I do.
You may begin.
Okay, thank you. Hi. Thanks for allowing me to speak today. My name is Christina Barman, and I teach sociology at Central with a focus on medical sociology and aging. As I was reading about your plans for the Charter Oak State College, I couldn't help but liken it to what's happened with our healthcare system. In the US, we have the least access and the worst health outcomes out of any high-income nation, yet we pay the most because our public and private dollars are being funneled into shareholder profits without adding any benefit. Public-private partnerships have made healthcare way too expensive for middle-class Americans. Long-term care costs threaten the stability of most middle-class families. In education, they have increased. Public-private partnerships and outsourcing have had similar results. They increase tuition while decreasing quality. Treating our colleges like businesses has increased the ranks of administration, increased the percentage of faculty that are contingent, and increased class sizes. Partnerships with online program management systems, as proposed in the plan, McDonaldize courses and curriculums while funneling taxpayer dollars and tuition dollars into profit for shareholders. Education is not a service that can or should be automated. It is a creative endeavor. It requires building rapport and establishing relationships. It takes substantial time and effort. I never teach the same class twice. I'm continually incorporating new research, adapting to new students with different problems and new social conditions. A canned, out-of-the-box class taught by a facilitator who did not create the class cannot do this. But education is not the goal of the new charter oak plan. Nowhere is there talk about an excellent or quality education. The primary goal is profit. It turns a public good into a private institution and turns our students into customers. The planning includes creating new revenue generating programs and services. There is a paucity of research that shows that programs like these improve employability. However, there is research that shows that they aggressively recruit the most vulnerable and marginalized students and bilk them. The plan will generate revenue while decreasing the value, making Charter Oak a diploma mill where students can buy credentials without having to pay actual teachers. Retention has long been a problem with online programs. Most students need a lot of individual attention. Online classes do work very well for a very small group of very highly motivated people who have a lot of constraints. People like working single mothers or people with disabilities. That is who you are trying to profit from and sell crappy cookie cutter classes to. The people who are struggling to make it and get ahead in our state. As members of the Board of Regents, you have a responsibility to be better stewards of this system and not sell it off to for-profit companies. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go work on KPIs that probably will get buried in a drawer.
Thank you, Professor Barman.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Trish Stewart, a professor from Western. Hold on, please. Professor Stewart, can you check your audio and your video for me, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Could you check your video? There you are.
It's on.
Excellent. Do you have your 3 minutes ready?
Just 1 second, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tricia Stewart from Western Connecticut State University, and today I want to talk to you specifically about the Charter Oak Scaling Task Force report and the concerns that I have with the things that are stated there, as well as the redundancy that this will create in our system. Perhaps you've all heard of the sandwich generation. Perhaps some of you are sandwiched. You're people who are stuck behind raising your parents and raising your children. That's a harsh reality as our parents age. I would posit that our regional universities that are our comprehensive colleges have become sandwiched between the UConn satellite campuses and now Charter Oak expansion, and direct result in lessening the students who are available for us to educate at Eastern, Central, Southern, and Western. It leaves me to wonder who is ensuring the future of our 4 regional comprehensive universities. It seems that very little understanding of what takes place at those schools is known as well as cared about, and that's a problem. In looking at the scaling report, it not only creates redundancy across our 4 campuses, but in specific areas that will decrease our enrollment. There's the 2+2 ladder. Well, guess what we have at our 4 universities? We have 2+2 programs that are meant to specifically attract students from our 12 community colleges. And we've been actively working at creating robust policies that will ease their transitions to our 4 schools. Additionally, the schools of education already are accredited at all 4 of our universities. You must be nationally accredited to open and have a school of education. This is not only an expensive endeavor, but it is also one that requires full-time dedicated faculty to teaching education courses, not asynchronously. Additionally, we have an early childhood program that was approved by this Board of Regents at Western Connecticut State University, and that's the first one that's supposed to roll out at Charter Oak. That is concerning. To quote from the report, COSC will increase its competitiveness. Yes, you will. You'll be increasing your competitiveness with the 4 regional comprehensive universities that already exist in our state, while increasing cost, cutting faculty jobs, and resulting in the closing of programs that we've spent years developing. I would end with a statement that I ask you to reject prioritizing Charter Oak at the expense of the 4 regional comprehensive universities, Eastern, Central, Southern, and Western. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Professor Rupp from Southern. Can you hold, please? Christy Rupp, can you check your audio and your video for me, please? There's the video and your audio. Can you check that, please? Christy, can you say something to check your audio, please?
Hello?
There we go. Do you have your 3 minutes ready?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you all.
You may begin.
Do I just start talking? I'm sorry, I can't hear anyone.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. I'm going to go ahead. Thank you so much. So Chairman Guay and members of the board, my name is Christy Rupp, and I am an associate professor in exercise science in Southern Connecticut State University. I am joining you today to express my significant concerns related to the proposed Charter Oak scaling plan. There are numerous well-documented problems with online-only higher education. First and foremost, as reported by Inside Higher Education, fewer than half of students at the largest nonprofit online institutions, including those cited in this plan as aspirational, receive a bachelor's degree within 8 years. While there are several advantages of an online education, especially for students of a certain demographic, for example, those who are older, already have a solid educational foundation, are highly motivated and have good time management skills. It is certainly not appropriate for students who are younger or from underserved backgrounds who need additional support and resources to be successful in pursuit of higher education and beyond, the very demographic this plan wants to market to and enroll. My written testimony goes into more detail about the detriments of online-only education relative to an in-person education. In-person learning environments foster stronger connections with faculty and peers, a reduced sense of social isolation, and much-needed structure that a regular schedule provides. In-person education also provides the necessary opportunities to develop soft skills, for example, interpersonal and communication skills, which are necessary for success in any profession and currently in precipitous decline among younger generations. At a time where employers are increasingly sounding the alarm about the deficit in soft skills in their youngest employees, why would we funnel young individuals into a modality of education that's going to further stymie the development of these essential soft skills? Furthermore, the proposed investment in AI-driven support services to handle essential in-person tasks like tutoring, advising, and career support is laughable and removes whatever limited opportunity for human interaction there may have been with this proposed model. Even more concerning is that the Charter Oak scaling plan wants to focus on developing programs to address employment gaps in healthcare and education, which require strong soft skills and necessary in-person training to develop qualified professionals. As an educator in the healthcare field, I know this firsthand. Laboratory experiences for students, which are essential components of several of the courses I teach, are where students learn and develop proficiency using discipline-specific technology, learn how to interact with colleagues and patients, and adapt to unforeseen circumstances. These experiences flat out cannot be replicated in an online asynchronous environment. I personally would have questions about the competence and preparedness of healthcare providers who have completed a fully online degree and would argue that many employers likely feel similarly. If we really want to address the employment gaps in fields like healthcare and education, perhaps we invest in increasing the accessibility of our established programs at the CSCUs that have demonstrable student and employment outcomes. Also, maybe we pay those professionals a competitive living wage, but that's for a different audience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our final virtual presenter is Professor Mizra from Western. Could you check your audio for me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can. You've got your 3 minutes ready?
Yeah.
You may begin.
Good morning. Should I talk? She's still
Yes, you may
talking.
begin.
We can hear you, Manoj.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Dr. Manoj Misra, and AUP chapter president at Western Connecticut State University. Good morning. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. I'm Dr. Manoj Misra, an AAP chapter president at Western Connecticut State University. We reject the task force report on Charter Oak expansion, particularly its recommendation to launch a new school of education. This proposal would duplicate the work of Western's well-established education department, directly impacting our enrollment. We have already experienced the harmful effects of program duplication. In 2018, Western's RN to BSN program enrolled 58 students and was thriving. However, in 2019, the BOR allowed Charter Oak to launch a similar RN to BSN program. As a result, enrollment in our program plummeted to just 8 students by 2024. This decline is caused by the board's misguided decision to allow program duplication. Yet, the institutions like ours are consistently blamed for enrollment declines. Yesterday, we had a productive conversation with BOR Chair Marty Gui and Chancellor Chang during our Senate meeting. We thank them for attending and listening to our concerns. Chair Gui publicly committed that the board would not allow Charter Oak to duplicate programs. He explained that his intention was to explore opportunities to attract non-traditional corporate employees who currently turn to Southern New Hampshire University for bespoke certificate programs. Western does not oppose this idea, provided these certificates do not compete with the offerings of business or professional studies schools within the CSUs. It seems the task force misunderstood its mandate. Its recommendation for a new ultra-low-cost school of education and other programs with AI advising thrown in there is out of touch and directly competes with existing programs at our campuses. I imagine corporate employees earning six-figure salaries are unlikely to quit their jobs to become public school teachers. We take Chair Gui at his word and recommend the task force report be discarded entirely. If needed, a new task force should be formed with a clearer and more specific mandate aligning with Chair Gui's stated goals. We are also encouraged by Chair Gui's assurance that the board will continue to prioritize high-quality, faculty-led in-person education over asynchronous online learning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Professor Pearson from Central. You've got your 3 minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. I am Fiona Pearson, Chair of Sociology at CCSU. Having reviewed the recent Scaling Task Force report, I appreciate your considering a tuition-free option for students. We absolutely must address the nationwide problem of skyrocketing student debt in free college, such as CSU AAUP's proposal to expand the PACT program to the CSUs is one way we might do that. That said, I am significantly concerned by just about everything else in that report. I challenge Dr. Rick Levin, one of the authors of the report, former CEO of the online course provider Coursera, no potential conflict there of interest, and former president of Yale University, to propose such online programs for the undergraduates at his former institution. Instead, Yale limits the number of online courses students can take. I believe it's 2. And the few online courses available to Yale undergraduates are during the summer, are all synchronous and require students to meet in real time with real professors and not engage with grading advising bots. We know CSU is not Yale. We don't have that kind of endowment, but our community college and state university students deserve the same quality, high quality, first class education that students at our best universities experience. We are sold that online programs provide flexibility and opportunity for underserved populations. However, the data bears out very different findings. Instead, research reveals quite clearly what sociologist Tressie McMillan Cottom refers to as predatory inclusion. And the concept is as damning as it sounds. I will clarify. Using data from the US Department of Education, researchers last year found that nonprofit colleges and universities, students receiving Pell Grants and those who identify as Black were disproportionately concentrated in their online courses. Those online students have lower retention rates, are less likely to graduate with a degree, are more likely to be delinquent or default on their student loans. The researchers conclude, quote, overall, our findings provide novel evidence using the best available data, iPads, and the beginning post-secondary data set, that online programs meet the criteria for predatory inclusion. And with the recent rapid advance of generative AI, the future of all education, and particularly online education, is quite unclear. Presidents, provosts, and faculty are only beginning to grapple with this reality. Our students are increasingly relying on such generative AI technologies to do their reading, to do their writing, and even do their exam taking for them. Yet instead of addressing these very real challenges to faculty at this time, we are instead presented with what honestly appears to be an AI-generated report advocating for more AI, science fiction, I wish. When we stop striving for educational excellence and when we squander our already starved resources to support fundamentally predatory practices, we should be ashamed. When we stop striving for excellence and stoop to exploitation, we should be ashamed. It is really that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Professor Lanigan-Leitzel from Eastern. You got your 3 minutes?
Yep.
You may begin.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Dr. Lindsay Lanigan-Leitzel, Professor of Psychological Science at Eastern. I taught my first course as a graduate student in 2005, so I have 20 years of experience with teaching, including both on-ground and online modalities. I read with interest the Charter Oak State College Scaling Report, and I have many concerns about the plan and its effect on students, but in the interest of time, I'll limit my comments to 3 major issues. The first is that quality teaching that prepares students for careers depends upon the instructor being an active scholar in their field. Many, if not most disciplines, change so frequently that only an active scholar will be up to date with the latest issues, problems, and solutions. Teaching that inspires students' dreams and prepares them for the reality of the workplace necessitates practical, hands-on experiences, and in some disciplines, it would be very difficult to accomplish that well in a virtual format. This is especially true if the instructor of the course is not the one who designed it. The second issue is that if you ask business leaders what they want in new hires, they will tell you that they want candidates who are professional, able to interact comfortably with and effectively with people of diverse backgrounds, to work well as part of a team, and to manage conflict and ambiguity. As a professor, I'm frequently asked to write letters of recommendation and serve as a reference for students applying for jobs or graduate school. And I recently provided a recommendation where some of the questions included, how would you rate their emotional intelligence? Are they comfortable in various situations with children, families, colleagues, people of diverse backgrounds? And how well do they collaborate? I would be unable to answer these questions if I had not observed this student working with fellow students in the classroom. Third, I was horrified to read in the report that tutoring, advising, and accessibility services would be provided via AI. Only a subject matter expert can provide effective tutoring in a discipline. Any faculty member can tell you that students who really need help cannot articulate what they understand and what they don't, and the AI cannot read their mind. It is only by talking to the student and making connections to shared knowledge that you can help the student over their roadblock. AI academic advising is also a mistake. Every student has different career aspirations and different strengths, and this guides my recommendations for specific courses, internships, and other activities. Third, students with accessibility needs are some of our most vulnerable students, and they deserve help and guidance from a real person to help them achieve their educational dreams, not a computer AI bot. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final presenter today is Professor Stretch from Southern.
Good morning. My name's Cindy Stretch. I'm the chair of the English department at Southern, and I'm a proud member of my union, CSU AAUP. It's hard to know where to start, but since I'm the last on the list of speakers, I'll start with what you've already heard. You've gotten an earful from my colleagues about the dangers of the Charter Oak scale-up proposal, critiques covering a range of issues centered on the plan's complete disregard for the quality of education students will receive from bots and instructors who are piece workers paid per student. I'll amplify that point as well as reiterate our collective dismay at the proposal's blasé capitulation to privatization, a capitulation that serves Governor Lamont's buddies and probably members of this very board's own financial interests rather than the needs of our students and all those who very much want the kind of education they could get at the state universities if those institutions were not further gutted by bad policies born of arrogant disregard of the insights and expertise of the people who do the work every day. When you get to the supporting materials for today's meeting, you'll find testimony from a colleague at Southern who speaks from her own experience as a graduate of a program very much like the one proposed in the shoddy plan. I want to read a bit of it so that it doesn't get lost in the stack of careful and passionate arguments. There are a lot of them. I want you to note how many people showed up to speak to this plan on the second day of the semester. That's the level of concern spread throughout the CSU system. And if we had had more time, there would have been a lot more people expressing their concerns. I want to read a bit of it so it doesn't get lost in those arguments, arguments against the scaling up of Charter Oak. This is a quote. When I first became a teacher, she explains, I was certified for the state of Texas under an all-online async program. I'm sure it checked all the boxes and on paper seemed like a solution to the teacher crisis that, as we know now, was only beginning to pick up steam back in 2013. I can speak with some authority as a graduate of this program in telling you that it is terrible. It should not be relied upon to produce good educators or nurses or social workers. It is at best an attempt to enrich a business that believes that teaching children is no more complicated than the anti-phishing cybersecurity tutorials that state employees must complete every calendar year. She goes on to explain in some detail what makes the plan so terrible. But I want to move on. As my colleague, Dr. Misra, noted, Chair Gway promised the other day that the scale-up proposal would be reviewed by the Academic Affairs and Finance Committees, and that if there were any overlap with existing programs, they would not proceed. Well, there are overlaps, direct ones, overlaps that will cannibalize our existing programs, programs that are already starved for resources. If Chair Gway was being honest with the faculty at Western, then it looks like this plan is already kaput. Which brings me to my last point. How in the world could this proposal have gotten this far without the stewards of the system knowing that the plan was duplicating existing programs? Once again, the leadership of the system refused to consult the faculty who develop, implement, teach, and assess those very existing programs. Do I hear another oops, we forgot? Please. We should all be working together to get funding for our institutions, to pass a bill that will expand PACT and make it possible for our students to get outstanding educations at our state universities, to make sure that the governor doesn't pull another fast one and refuse to allocate funds to meet payroll at the same rate as other state agencies and then blame us for a deficit. Instead, we are here today on day 2 of the spring semester, trying to explain to you what we could have told you months ago if you had asked, if you had been willing to listen, if you had been able to resist what looks like a shortcut to a shiny gimmick. Reject the plan.
Thank you.
Chair Gway, that concludes public comment today.
Thank you. Thanks for the speakers for your testimony. I know your position is quite clear, and certainly your concerns are quite well stated. I will say that I am a bit surprised by the level of vocal support after each presentation, especially after the Chancellor outlined all the achievements of individuals just in the system in colleges and universities. And maybe that could have merited applause also, but I'll turn it over to Regent Yang to speak about the proposed task force findings.
There we go. Hello, sir. I'm too loud already. Hello? There we go. All right. I'm just going to do it from here as opposed to the podium. So thank you, everyone, for your comments. I'm not going to go through the document because it appears that everyone in this room has read it, but I will provide an overview. But first, let me just state that I hear the concerns that people are saying. All of you members that showed up today, those people online, and I respect your opinions on all of these things. In fact, I invite you to work with us. Maybe you're not used to the way this process for this task force came about, but this is the beginning of our process, not the end. I know that in the past, there has been stuff that has been sprung on people at these meetings, perhaps sprung on people outside these walls, and that you've come here to challenge these findings. In fact, I did also vote against this, if you may recall, because I don't want to be surprised either. This is us working with you, and there were both faculty members, union members, and other members who have participated both on this task force and were consulted by this task force. But I appreciate that not all of you felt included, and we need to work together. So I invite all of you to reach out to us in the spirit of working productively and working towards a goal. And that goal is servicing our students. It is not, there are quite a few acquisitions leveled here today. I just want everyone to understand this is not a zero-sum game. We are not the only game in town, not just in our state, but in our country or in our world for that matter, whether it's international level competition. The purpose of developing a lot of these programs, as Chair Gray said yesterday at Western, is to go after underserved populations that are not being serviced in any of our schools to the level in which they exist here in our state. For example, those with some college but no degree, which I think everyone here would agree we should try to get them to complete. The concept of working together with you and developing something better is the purpose of this task force. And this work, again, is did not result in a proposal. This is not a proposal. There's nothing to be rejected or not. There's nothing that's going to come to a vote or not. These are simply ideas that were expressed by the members of this committee, who, by the way, I thank for their work, none of which are being paid, none of which have any financial compensation whatsoever, despite accusations to the contrary, and except for, of course, those people who work at Charter Oak and our full-time faculty otherwise, who, of course, are compensated fairly. The purpose of a lot of the things that I think are in the report is really to start the conversation again and not end them. Well, let me clarify a few points. I'm not going to go through everything. Again, I invite you to come speak to me after this meeting at any time, members of AAUP, otherwise faculty, anywhere else. Those of you who know me, and maybe most of you don't, I've gone to every campus and I'll keep going to every campus. And I will keep meeting with you and speaking with you. This is not in any way an idea that came from the board and is going to live within the board. This exists only collectively. I cannot say that enough times. I think how many times have I said it so far? Again, there are a couple things I just want to throw out in here, just make sure we everyone catches them, right? The tuition-free college that is mentioned here is a goal, right? Realistically, I don't know if this will happen, just like expansion of PACT, which, by the way, I'm also for. This is not something that begins and ends only in Charter Oak, right? I think that, and again, I'm speaking my own opinion, not the opinion of the board, that, and but also the opinion of this committee, that having a tuition-free reimbursement program that helps us meet workforce goals and helps disadvantaged populations get a bachelor's degree is critical. And that will result in more jobs for everybody, not fewer. That will result in more jobs for professors, not fewer. The reality of everything we're trying to do here is about meeting students' needs that by voting with their feet and enrolling in classes from other institutions that are already fully online, that are out of state, that are creating no jobs here in our state, no faculty jobs, no administrative jobs. That's what we're looking to do. And we're looking to do it in a very transparent way. So I would hope that the members of AUP and whoever else, faculty, that do not have a problem with tuition free. If you do have problems with the way in which the work with task force, I will certainly own that. Again, this is the beginning of that conversation, and I invite all of you to have further conversations with us. I will refer to the actual document for any further information that people may or may not want from there. And again, the people from Charter are available. Let me just point out one thing before I cede my time, which is that the one of the stated goals of this is exactly workforce. And the AI Academy that was rolled out in collaboration with Google very recently is an example of this kind of success of working with industry to get people credentials that will get people in this state jobs and for free, right? This is, as Chair Gray outlined yesterday at Western, this is the vision. This is the primary goal of what is being done here, right? While there are other pieces that may be viewed as competitive, again, our viewpoint is that that belongs fully within the purview of the board, shared governance, the ASA committee specifically, chaired by Committee Chair Bloom over there, to evaluate them. And in no way is this proposal a done deal again. That's it for me.
Chair Guay, we have a hand raised. Professor Cunningham, if you'd like to recognize Professor Cunningham.
Absolutely. Professor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair Guay. I would just like to provide some of my own remarks, more related to the sort of the long arc and wider context within which the Charter Oak Scaling Plan has emerged. Only 2 years after CSCU and the BOR were created, our neighbor to the north, Massachusetts, first surpassed Connecticut in real GDP per capita. We were leading them before 2011. On average, and compared to Connecticut, a Massachusetts resident could enjoy more than $600 in purchasing power per year starting in 2013. That gap has grown by 5x in intervening years to now over $3,000 per year in purchasing power that Connecticut residents have lost compared to Massachusetts. Chair Guay and management, you are in receipt of a letter from CSU AAUP President Louise Williams, which rightfully places Charter Oak scaling within the context of a long legacy of BOR and management failures. Students First, CSCU 2030, the Retirement Incentive Plan, tuition hikes, and many more. All of these are a drag on Connecticut's economy compared to Massachusetts. When you shackle public higher education with harebrained schemes, you shackle Connecticut. Let me tell you what real leadership of public higher education looks like with a quote. And I quote, "Our public university and college campuses have suffered from historic underinvestment since they were built in the 1970s. We refuse to kick the can down the road any longer when it comes to educating our kids and training our workers of tomorrow. With these transformative infrastructure investments, we will give students a cutting-edge education." That quote is from a governor who is meeting the moment we are in. That quote is from Massachusetts Governor Healy announcing 2 days ago a $2.5 billion upgrade to state and community college campuses in Massachusetts. That's real leadership of education, and that's real leadership of an economy. Massachusetts is leaving us in the dust and kicking sand in our faces while they're at it. The Charter Oak scaling scheme will only place us further behind our neighbors to the north. It is time to get real, and it is time to fund free tuition for students at the Connecticut State Universities. Only that will give us any hope for the type of success we enviously see across the border in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Alina?
So I'm really glad to hear this is a starting point, not an ending point. And I think that you've heard enough. I mean, the volume of commentary that has come in as we all prepare for the very beginning of a semester, from those of us who actually teach, and are professionals in this field, I think should indicate that there will be a lot of work to do. And if you notice, the content of that commentary is about the legitimacy and the quality of such a program, right? About the desirability of such a program. I think I forget his name, but the past Coursera president, who's also a past Yale president, lends some credibility to the sort of academic quality of this report. And yet at the same time, I would ask you how many such programs Yale has implemented, right? So when you say we work together, the question is work together to solve what problem exactly? And I hear a lot about the sort of market capture, right? I hear a lot of concession to the fact that we are not well funded at the state level and a need to market ourselves and grab tuition dollars in some way, right? But I'm afraid that we are, even with the free tuition, which notably we have packed and we still haven't funded it, right? We have no funding source. It's not being right. So this is a real aspiration here. That we're providing a cheap alternative. I think that's what you're hearing everybody say here, right? It's a cheap alternative. I want to repeat the term predatory inclusion. It is it's a real risk. And I worry that we are creating a sort of a hierarchy of educational opportunities in the state and even within the public education system. So, you know, when it comes to this goal of systemness that the board has instituted and talked so much about for so long, this either does or does not duplicate the programs offered at the CSUs. If it does, that's a real problem, because nobody would claim that this is a better educational alternative for our students. If it does not, then we are conceding that we're just offering students a cheap alternative. And I think that conversation has to be had. So, I mean, I'll try to leave it there. Only just want to make sure that I respond to something that you said in terms of conflicts of interest and et cetera. This is not the first time tech vendors have consulted with this system about how we might use their services to expand online offerings. It might not be the second time. I wish David Blitz was here. He'd give you a 10-page report perhaps on that, right? So it's not the first or second time. And the real question is like, how are we educating these students? And if we're filling workforce needs, how are we producing well-qualified, well-trained, high quality, right? Workers in these fields, to teach our children to keep us healthy. Like that's the real question we should be answering. Yeah, and one more thing. There have been so many large-scale structural changes in the system, and we have not seen any of them through to completion or to success yet. Like, can we just like get CT State off and run in? Can we actually fulfill the purpose of the creation of this system in the first place, which was transfer between colleges and we don't even track the data successfully from that. Like bare minimum, like let's just get something to succeed before we have another hugely ambitious and questionable project. So those are my thoughts at the moment.
Quite good.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you for that. I guess in reverse order, let me just point out that this was not done in conjunction with any consulting houses or private firms or whatever. These people worked as individuals and donated their time. Now, of course, you can argue whether that's possible or not. I will tell you, again, the committee has nothing to hide in terms of its operations here, but this is certainly not designed to, and nor was it engaged with, paid or unpaid, any entities at all. Now, yes, some of these people are experts and have affiliations with those entities. So again, I certainly appreciate that there could be potential conflicts. That is different than actual conflicts, of course. Your point is very well taken. And I want people to understand, I've been on the record in other places saying that the quality of education is paramount here. Now, I sadly have consumed a ton of healthcare, within the first, months of the birth of my own children. And believe me, I know better than most that you cannot substitute in-person credentialing and experience for that. And of course, now I also have to deal with the educational component as well, and of my own children, right? So believe me, I am not of any person here, and neither are any of the people on the committee, saying that our goal is to reduce the quality. Now, you may argue this is inevitable between online versus other modalities, and I would say that is an ongoing conversation, as everyone here well knows. It is far bigger than the group of the people here. I will also say that with regards towards what we can be doing towards getting, walking and chewing gum, as it will, should we be able to get, I also wish, I think all of us wish, that we could just deal with one crisis at a time. Unfortunately, we're not controlling the way in which these arrive. And I will be clear about this. that there is an existential threat that exists in terms of online education right now from predatory companies, for-profit companies, not just nonprofit companies, right, that are taking Connecticut students. Can we do better in providing an alternative? Absolutely, we can. And that is one of the goals here. Again, to create those jobs here in a mechanism that we do control, because it is part of our system. But again, Chair Gway also said this again today, and he said it prior, the systemness, which again, I wasn't here when the initial conversations of that happened. One of the goals that we must have is the preservation of the individuality of our schools, right? And to the degree, as I said earlier, that this results in unnecessary and ruinous competition. That is literally the mandate that falls under Committee Chair Bloom's committee, and I certainly defer to him to work on that. Now, should we even be proposing things that are competition or not? I think we all understand these are complex institutions that are working on a lot of things all at once, and some of this is going to happen, and it is our job to make sure that is not something that is to the detriment of everyone within the system of all the schools as well. But I think we all understand that we don't want to be have the people in system office order in lockstep exactly what happens in every one of these institutions. And so if we're moving the ball a little bit forward in here because of what's going on with Charter Oak, that was certainly the mandate of this committee. But please bear in mind that I and other members of this board are thinking far greater than that in terms of the entire system, not just that we would grow Charter Oak at the expense of, because then that's a loss, right? Again, what we must be doing is competing in this online workspace and try to deliver a quality product that we can control.
Regent Santiago.
Thank you, Chair Gway. I just, sometimes we get into these back and forths, and I just sometimes think it's important to take a step back and zoom out. And I think, I look at the CSCU mission to provide affordable, innovative, and rigorous academic programs for students to allow them to achieve their personal and career goals. I don't know how we can move forward and not embrace the online modality even more than we have. The move to online education predates the pandemic and has been growing. Southern New Hampshire State University advertises the 10,000 Connecticut residents that have taken and are taking courses there. Our students are demonstrating, or potential students or former students, that they want to be able to take courses online. So whatever else we can talk about here, if we truly care about helping students, current, future, and past, do the best they can, we need to meet them where they are. Charter Oak State University is our endeavor to meet them online. And working together, online and in-person modalities, we should be coming together for the needs of our students. Conversation about teacher jobs and faculty jobs and all that should be secondary or tertiary concerns to the needs of educating our students. And hopefully we can take that step back and think about that and work together to make this online education the best it can be to meet our students where they are.
Professor Cunningham. Thanks, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
I would just like to share one fact related to Chancellor Chang's question earlier about doing better with respect to graduation rates. Southern New Hampshire University's graduation rate is 35%. I don't know if we should be touting that as something that's going to serve our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Cunningham. I'd like to, we got a lot of conversation going back and forth, and I'd like to acknowledge President Klonowski for his service to this whole system and leading Charter Oak and having some really great outcomes. When I set this task force up and I saw that we were doing work for a few thousand students, and the genesis, Manoj at Western had it right. The genesis was some big corporations in Connecticut were doing their training and their online education outside the state. And then I heard, well, we have some students that have to travel far to some of our regionals. Could there be a course? Could we do something different? So the task force was set up to evaluate what we should do. It's not set up as it is reported in this report on what we will do. I know everyone's nervous and maybe previous experiences have caused that, but we're not going to do anything that cannibalizes in-person learning. That's the foundation of what we do. And I think Christine Rupp from Southern Connecticut was on earlier. Professor Rupp spoke about soft skills. We need more of that, by the way. Those are my comments on it. President Klonowski, do you want to say a few words?
Of facts to differentiate generic online learning from Charter Oak State College, an accredited part of the system. We're not a diploma mill. Work at Charter Oak is done by 2 bargaining units, an ASCII unit and a soon-to-be approved 4Cs unit for our adjuncts. So criticisms of the college performance by a union is a criticism of other union employees. Second, in 5 of the past 6 years, we've not raised tuition. That can't be said by any other institution in the state of Connecticut. I'm very proud of that. Now some other data. Somebody talked about Southern New Hampshire's graduation rate. I have the 6-year graduation rates for all the institutions in this state. Charter Oaks is 56%. It's only beaten by Central and by Eastern. Retention rates, ours is 74%, second in the system. Median earnings by our graduates, Charter Oak leads the field with 64K. Debt after graduation, we have the lowest debt after graduation of $18,000. And default rate, which is a measure of our students' ability to pay back the loans they take out, we lead the system at 1.2%. I'll read you a short statement. It comes from another place, basically. Charter Oak distinguished itself with the lowest median debt after graduation, the lowest default rate, indicating better financial outcomes for its graduates. This likely contributes to our higher ranking in Forbes' America's Top Colleges list. There were only 2 system schools in the 500 list. We were at the lead at number 338, Central was at 374. These rankings consider factors like alumni salary, debt, graduation rate, and return on investment, suggesting our strengths in these areas outweigh slightly learning rates in other places. So I leave you with this. Do not generalize distance learning when you're talking about Charter Oak's proposals. Think about the institution that's part of your system, that serves your students when they leave CT State or other institutions, and that has a track record of performance that I'll hold up against anyone else in the room. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, President Klonowski. Want to say something?
No, I'm finished.
Okay. And from my perspective, this is not an or discussion. This is an and discussion. How can we take advantage in certain circumstances online? And how do we do that? That was the task given to the task force was quite general. What should we do? Clearly, we've hit a lightning rod. But I think the discussion is starting, and this board will not take any decision until we get really strong alignment with all stakeholders in the system. With that, I'm going to turn it over to President John Maduco for his special healthcare task force, and I hope your waves are smoother, President Maduco.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gray. At this time, I would like to invite Dr. Sandra Boomer, Dean of the College of Health and Human Services and Professor of Public Health for Southern Connecticut State University. For starters, I was honored to be tapped to chair this healthcare task force for many reasons. Obviously, as a physician, healthcare is near and dear to my heart. And more importantly, the CSCU healthcare portfolio across our 6 institutions is something that I believe all of us statewide can be really proud of. Next slide. Before we go into details, I think it's always important to give thanks to whoever you pray to, but also to the people who are involved. So for starters, I want to thank members of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities community, Victoria Bizzuto at the system office, obviously Dr. Boomer at Southern, Sarah Caro at the system office, Dr. Paula Dowd at CT State, Jan Keene at the system office, Provost Dr. Kim Costellas at Central Connecticut State University, Dr. Maria Cole at Southern Connecticut State University, Dr. Carrie Lagman at Central Connecticut State University, Dr. Kathy Murphy at Charter Oak State College, Dr. Christina Nadal at Eastern Connecticut State University, Dr. Joan Palladino at Western Connecticut State University, and Dr. Michelle Van Coor at Southern Connecticut State University for their contributions, and many of whom have served on the CSCU Health Career Council for years and worked in partnership with our faculty across the system. Additionally, we leaned on the external expertise of partner organizations. So, many thanks to one of our ex officio board members, but also the commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Public Health, Dr. Manisha Jutani, and her chief of staff, Adelita Orifice, Ms. Tiffany Dellinson, who is the president and CEO of Connecticut Health Foundation, Matthew Storygard, a senior managing director at Connecticut Innovations, Dr. Kelly Marie Valiaris, our chief workforce officer out of the Connecticut Office of Workforce Strategy, Mr. Mark Argosh, who's the executive director of Social Impact Partners, and his directors, Alicia Angus and Chris Rivers, and last but not least, a dear colleague of mine from the national level, Dr. Jennifer Eccles, who was a professor and leader in nursing in Minnesota, serves as the secretary of the National Forum of State Nursing Workforce Centers. All of these individuals, represent the brain trust, the expertise, the insight that was involved in this healthcare task force. Next slide. So to kind of introduce you to who we are as CSCU, we have 6 reputable institutions that play a significant role in the healthcare, education, and training space here in Connecticut. And we play a huge role in meeting the state's healthcare workforce needs. We are the largest public higher ed system in the state, right? And you can argue that we train and produce the majority of healthcare professionals in the great state of Connecticut. Our graduates achieve high certification and licensure as it pertains to their exam pass rates. They often secure in-state jobs because we know that the majority of our graduates remain in Connecticut. They experience upward and financial mobility as it pertains to salary strength. And lastly, they bolster Connecticut's healthcare sector, right? So again, we lead this space in the healthcare workforce. And the work of this task force is truly to align healthcare education with workforce needs, with public health priorities, student outcomes, faculty goals, and the technological advancements that is needed to support and advance healthcare here and in the future. We also have a report. So in your board documents, we provided this presentation. We also provided the report that was put together by our task force, kind of outlining the strategies, things that we have to do to kind of strengthen our clinical programs, foster innovation, and promote equity in healthcare education. Next slide. So the landscape here in Connecticut, Connecticut's a small state, but it's densely populated, and we're facing significant challenges. One, there is a workforce shortage in healthcare, where on a monthly basis, there are 20,000 job openings in healthcare, highlighting a critical staffing need. I will say that the healthcare tsunami is here, right? And you talk to a healthcare professional, talk to a healthcare leader, they don't sleep at night, right? Because there is not enough healthcare professionals to adequately serve the state of Connecticut. I think, 2, we have public health challenges and disparities, right? So healthcare is not equal based on where in Connecticut you reside. Case in point, I believe the city of Hartford and the city of West Hartford neighbor each other, right? I believe they neighbor each other. But the healthcare disparity between Hartford and West Hartford is more than 10 years. So the lifetime expectancy, right, is higher in West Hartford than their neighboring city in Hartford, right? That's one really significant example here in this state. We have disparities in the rural parts of Connecticut, because there is rural parts of Connecticut. We absolutely have disparities in our urban centers across the state. There are diversity gaps, right? We still encounter challenges where in some to many cases, the healthcare professionals do not reflect the diversity of the very patients we're treating. There's economic impact, right? So when we deal with workforce shortages in healthcare, it absolutely drives the cost of services, right? It puts financial burdens on healthcare facilities and systems. And ultimately, those costs roll back to the patients, right? I think we all have an experience of growing healthcare costs. And then lastly, there are emerging fields in healthcare that are really tied to innovation for genomics, to telehealth, and beyond. I also want to stress that, one example when it comes to healthcare equity and access and quality, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists say that the maternal mortality rates are unacceptably high in the United States. And the CDC confirms those rates and say that 80% of those deaths are considered preventable. So 80% of women who die in childbirth, right, it was preventable, right? But we're having healthcare issues. And I think often it's lost in the conversation when it comes to healthcare. Our healthcare systems and facilities and providers are underwater. They are stressed. They are burnt out. And again, what was the quote unquote nursing shortage that was absolutely legit 15 to 20 years ago has spread across the entirety of the healthcare sector. Next slide. So in terms of the workforce shortages, going from left to right, we know of the nursing shortages that exist here in Connecticut, and the state is facing critical shortages of not just registered nurses due to retirements outpacing new professionals in the field, but also other levels of nursing educators, nurse practitioners, and beyond. We are seeing a significant, if not a critical, gaps when it comes to behavioral health, right? Where we're lacking enough qualified mental health care professionals, from psychiatrists to substance abuse counselors to social workers and beyond, right? And limited access is essential to care. Mid-level healthcare professionals, who I believe are the unsung heroes in healthcare. So everyone from technologists like diagnostic medical sonographers to respiratory therapists, there's a shortage here. And then lastly, the support roles in healthcare. So from CNAs to medical assistants to technicians, like I said earlier, it spans the entire sector. Next slide. So what is our role as CSU, right? One, we're a major contributor, right? We educate a significant share of Connecticut's healthcare professionals, right? And again, many of our graduates remain not only in Connecticut, but they serve our local communities. Next, our CSU healthcare portfolio is phenomenal, but is also diverse, right? And we offer disciplines and programs and opportunities that span a litany of disciplines. So often you hear about nursing, but again, there's so many niche professions and specialties that we offer. Student success, right? We will hang our hat on the success of our students. I had a conversation with someone that's typically critical of our system and critical of CT State, saying, well, I've heard, from my cousin that, your students don't do X, Y, and Z. And I told him, I'll put my career on the line right now, right? When it comes to the outcomes of our graduates, they do phenomenal because we have high quality programs. Next slide. So next, I want to pass the baton to my colleague, Dr. Sandra Bulmer. Before she continues, I really want to thank her now because you're busy, right, in terms of your day job at Southern. But additionally, I think this is an opportunity to hear more from our academic experts, both at the dean level and faculty level, to really shed light on the phenomenal programs, not just in healthcare, but across our programs in our institutions. So Dr. Bulmer.
Thank you. Thank you to the Board of Regents and Dr. Meduco for really extending me the honor of representing the faculty and staff who design, administer, and deliver these clinical healthcare programs. It was humbling to really put this report together and represent and become aware in many cases of the hard work, the dedication, and the accomplishments of these staff and faculty. If you don't take anything else away from today, please know that they are one of CSU's greatest assets. They really do amazing work for us every day and produce incredible outcomes. A couple of things with regard to the report. It's long, and you just got it, I think, yesterday. So you'll be chewing through it in the weeks ahead, hopefully. To orient you a little bit, we were really ambitious when we started. We wanted to do everything. We really wanted to tackle behavioral health, non-clinical healthcare. We just had to take the first bite of the apple and handle the clinical programs for this report. So we didn't need to slight those other areas. We recognize the importance, and we hope that we can get to that work in the future. When you look at the report, you'll see that it's divided with a preamble about the conditions of healthcare in Connecticut, and then it gets into nursing specifically and does a deep dive, shifts to other clinical healthcare programs that are in our portfolio, and then concludes with some identified challenges that we uncovered as we did this work and suggestions for some opportunities. So that's kind of how we have framed this. With regard to taking a look at the CSU role, a couple of things I would just want to say in terms of us being a major contributor. It's breathtaking how broad our portfolio is, and you should know that that is our greatest asset when we look across the state of Connecticut and comparisons to competitors, because no one else can do that. No one else can say they have this portfolio that extends. We included a description of the nursing career ladder, for example, and the portfolio extends all the way from the CNA, where I did not know this, but CT State produced 655 CNAs last year. All the way through, LPN is going to be launched in June, thanks to the hard work of Paula Dowd and her team at CT State. The BSN program graduated over 300 students from the state universities last year, which is 20% of the total degrees in the state. And CT State, associate's degrees in nursing, 65% of all associate's degrees, almost 500 of them were awarded by CT State last year. So we really, own that part of the portfolio, but we also do incredible work at the master's and doctoral level. And there's enormous opportunities for growth in those spaces because of what Dr. Meduco talked about. You have a very critical shortage of healthcare providers, especially primary care. And in the state of Connecticut, our APRNs are able to be primary care providers. So we are a major engine of producing that workforce. And I think we have potential to look deeper at things like a physician associate program and other things that we might want to do. The only other thing with orienting you to the report, I want to give a shout out to Sarah and Jan, who really helped us to connect data from our graduates to the Department of Labor for the state of Connecticut. So for the first time, we have some data to present. It's a cohort analysis of the 2018-2019 graduates from these healthcare programs. And what Jan and Sarah were able to do is link that to Department of Labor data for postgraduate employment and earnings. So what we now know for those cohorts of graduates is how much money were they making 3 quarters after they graduated and what percentage were employed at the state of Connecticut. That's important because we all talk about that. It's one of the assets for the CT State system is that we're the engine, right? We say this all the time. We produce the employees for the state of Connecticut. And I think doing more analysis like this will help us to really put specific numbers to that impact. And we're competing with the privates many times for funding, and I think that's a really great thing to step forward with. So, a couple of examples. You have salaries for associate's degree nurses 3 quarters after graduating in the $64,000 to $68,000 range. This is over 90% of them working in the state. BSN, $74,000 to $79,000 after graduation. Again, over 90% working in the state. So this is really important information.
Okay, next slide. Dr. Bowman and I, we'll tag team. We practiced this last night. We'll tag team the slides. But from our nursing programs, again, to dovetail on Dean Bulmer's sentiments, look at the multiple entry points we have in terms of our nursing portfolio. I think that's big, right? And then when you put that on top of our physical footprint and locations across the state, right, we are the epitome of access. I think that's really important. When it comes to flexibility, kudos to Southern Connecticut State University. They have 2 part-time healthcare programs, both at the BSN level and at the MSN nurse practitioner level, right? So we are doing this type of work when it pertains to fulfilling our mission and meeting our students where they are, that I believe Regent Santiago had mentioned earlier. Next slide. In terms of our non-nursing programs, often nursing dominates the headlines, but when it comes to the breadth of the CSCU healthcare portfolio, it's breathtaking. We have everything from respiratory care to surgical programs, to physical and occupational therapy programs, to radiography and beyond. That speaks to the complexity of healthcare, right? When you go into any type of healthcare facility, it's not just one department that's providing services, right? It's an ecosystem, if not a village of multiple disciplines providing care, quality care to patients, right? Right. That's the intricacies of the healthcare system, healthcare sector. And we're really proud that we have a litany of these programs across our institutions. When it comes to the high demand, the persistence and the licensure pass rates are phenomenal. So for nursing alone, we are north of 90%, right? So again, our nursing licensure pass rates at the first licensure level, so that's both ADN and BSN, I put us up against anybody in the state. That is, and I'll name the institutions, that is UConn and others. Toe to toe, let's go, right? We do phenomenal, right? On the backs of our faculty and obviously the aptitude of our students, right? But our other clinical programs are also phenomenal. Next slide.
I didn't hear. I also want to just acknowledge the strength of the non-nursing portfolio at the CSU. It's really the report we pulled out and selected featured certain programs that have amazing outcomes. Over 200 students are enrolled in the radiography program, and their graduation rates are phenomenal. Their pass rates are phenomenal. Our respiratory therapy program, phenomenal. But we included in the appendices a comprehensive listing of all of these programs because it wasn't possible to feature them all in the report. And then in terms of outcomes, I don't want to just shout out to the nurses. I always have to be careful in my day job because I have 8 departments in nursing. We always kind of joke, Marsha, nursing. It kind of takes all the air out of the room. But the success of our students is also phenomenal. 81% of our AS graduates from respiratory therapy were working in the state 3/4 after graduation and making $81,000 more average salaries. Now, keep in mind, when you do look at the data, there's, anytime you do a cohort study, there's challenges. So read the fine print on those tables. The people who we calculated average salaries for is anyone who was working in that quarter. So their salary might have been less or more depending on when they started. There's lots of things to consider, but these data really do get us started. So really important. We are the only provider for many of these professions for the state of Connecticut. The only provider. So when you think about our public mission, it's not all about, which programs make money. It's the workforce and the needs of our state, and CT State's non-nursing programs really deliver on that.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. So in terms of the challenges, right, we wanted to start on a high point, right, and demonstrate our pride in our programs and our people that drive our programs. But we have challenges, right? So there is resource limitation. There's a rising cost for faculty, right? It's not just a competition between institutions of higher education. We're competing with healthcare systems, right? So to encourage and recruit a licensed healthcare professional to leave their day job, right, and join the ranks of faculty, right, there's a delta that often we can't match. Additionally, there are technology needs, right? Technology is rapidly changing and advancing in healthcare, and typically when we adopt new equipment and technology, it becomes obsolete within 2 years, and therefore there's a need to replace that level of equipment. And then there's clinical placement, right? We are not the only game in town, so we compete with the other public higher ed system that I mentioned, all of the privates and the for-profits that continue to encroach more and more here in Connecticut. So, and then lastly, there's program sustainability. I think when we say return of investment, we have to be careful with that. If you're talking about immediate return of investment, probably not. We're talking about lifetime and long-term return of investment, absolutely, right? Because it's about the continuum of care of patients, right? And that's a multitude of decades. Next, the competition. Our competition is growing, and there's more stress placed on the likes of Dean Bomer and our counterparts across our system, right, to identify more clinical site accidents. I think the earlier discussion that was lively spoke to the importance of hands-on in-person experiences, and that is at the core of the quality of healthcare programs.
A few more things on our budget challenges. The faculty are getting it done. I just want to put it out there. The outcomes are phenomenal, but they're beleaguered and tired. COVID was rugged on the healthcare faculty and staff, and many of them have just kept the lights on and kept trudging through. But in many departments, there's disparities across the system that I recognized as I did this work, and a lot of it's in staffing. You know, the staff supports to get the clinical placements, to keep those clinical placements, to do the work of the new simulation centers and all of this. It's something we have to address. We've been very fortunate at Southern to secure external funding over the past 4 years. We also got a bond-funded building, and we're able to build a simulation center. It was a perfect moment to kind of pilot test what happens if you have an enormous opportunity to invest. And we are getting outcomes that we're really proud of. We're able to go from graduating 100 nursing students to 200 a year. But we had $4.8 million in support from Yale New Haven Health System, and we were recipients of some of the Health Horizons grant money. When Health Horizons ends June 30th, 2025, and the Yale agreement we currently have ends December 2026, I don't sleep at night. You know, we will have an enormous number of faculty and staff who are currently grant supported that will need to have solutions if we want to continue to put out that kind of workforce for the state of Connecticut. So, you know, we could go on and on. The report has a lot more information about resources and gaps. The technology at the hospital that you're going to want them to use on you if you have a health crisis, we need our students to work on when they're in their educational program, and that's expensive. And I love the money we got for bond funding for our beautiful building, but I stay awake at night wondering what I'm going to do when I need to replace equipment and licenses and pay those fees and technology. So it's really a sustainability issue that we also need to be thinking about as we try to think about scaling.
Thank you, Dr. Bulmer. And also on this slide, you know, we mentioned clinical placement barriers. There are equity gaps, right? We have to continue to work towards our students reflecting, you know, not only the people of Connecticut, but obviously the patient population in Connecticut. And then lastly, I think program marketing. I think we're getting calls. I think we're getting critiqued about marketing across the board from faculty, staff, administrators, and even state legislators. So we know that, you know, we need more innovative program marketing for sure. Next slide. So opportunities, right? There are huge opportunities in front of us now that we believe and that we support that we can address. You know, one, this program expansion. We have to scale the high demand fields such as nursing, those programs that utilize telehealth and genomics, and those, you know, mid-career healthcare professionals that we mentioned, right? To meet the growing demands of Connecticut. Connecticut's getting older, right? People are living longer. Right? So serving patients in their 8th and 9th decade is a reality for healthcare professionals, and that is costly. We need innovative pathways, right? So we have to develop flexible learning options, part-time, right? So at CT State, we have part-time nursing cohorts that we're proud of, both at our Capitol campus and our Gateway campus, but we know we have to do more to, again, meet people and students where they are. Accelerated programs, right? So our CSU, some of them have accelerated programs for those working professionals who want to transition to healthcare but can't quit their day job because they have to maintain their livelihood. We have to strengthen the collaboration not only within CSU between the 6 institutions, but with our healthcare providers and systems. And that's 100% of them that we have to collaborate more with them in terms of resource sharing and, again, clinical placements. Equity initiatives, right? So from scholarships and outreach and really speaking to underrepresented communities and rural populations, we have to meet people where they are. In rural America, often the success is not only am I from rural America, get the training and education, I go back to rural America to apply my skill set to my people, to my community, right? So those are, the equity initiatives, right, that we all have to kind of rally around. Technology integration, Dean Bulmer said it beautifully. Just the rapid advancement of technology is putting us behind the 8 ball. Donating use and old equipment isn't good enough, right? That's second class. So we have to address that concern. And then centralized coordination. I think right now it's very manual when we do the admissions of our healthcare programs, very manual when we do our clinical placements, where often as CSU brethren, we're competing with each other. And we need to leverage a digitized platform to ensure that all of our needs are being met, to ensure that those clinical experiences are available for our programs and our students.
I just want to say a few words about competition, because I think this is important. It takes a village, and our private partners are very important for providing the workforce that all of us want in the state of Connecticut. But they do have advantages that we need to attend to and be mindful of. I think we also, need to think about supply and demand when we look forward to what we can and can't do as a system. The supply is growing. We got University Arizona come in, we got Mitchell College adding a nursing program, we've got Albertus Magnus adding a nursing program, we got Sacred Heart getting in the business of associate degrees. A lot of people see an opportunity here, and we can't take for granted there's going to be an unlimited, number of students coming. I question the Connecticut workforce data because they don't account for how many students apply to multiple programs each year. So when they provide us with data about the number of qualified students who are turned away from nursing programs, that might be students who applied to multiple programs that are getting counted multiple times. And we know the demographics coming out of high school. We know the challenges. We can't take for granted that there will always be this incredible desire to be a nurse and unlimited supply. So we have to be very measured as we move forward and make investments. And these are expensive programs. I think we really need to think about the cost analysis of each program and the opportunity to pressure the employers who benefit from the pipeline we create. I think we need more authentic partnerships with those employers to make sure that if they're getting our employees, that they're making the investment right alongside us.
Next slide. And then lastly, here are our recommendations. So to cut straight to the point, this report, this task force is recommending a funding request of $20 million for CSCU healthcare initiatives, right? That would go across the 6 institutions. Additionally, we feel that we should, as a system, advocate for match funding from state contributions, right? In order to support the implementation of the following key recommendations and actions. Number one, we have to secure sustainable funding and partnerships. Dean Bulmer kind of gave you high-level examples of just, the challenges with sustainability of our programs, right? And that we need our employers, our healthcare partners to step up. We have to do more in philanthropy and external grants. Next, we have to expand high demand and emerging programs. So often we have one program that's providing, at least in the public sector, these mid-level professionals. And in order to expand them, it requires an investment on the front end. We have to align our programs with healthcare workforce demands. We have to launch new programs in areas that are emerging, and also create flexible pathways for non-traditional students like adult learners, displaced individuals, and working professionals. Next, we have to strengthen the collaboration and transfer pathways, right? We have to get this right between CT State and our 5 four-year institutions, right? Because upward mobility in healthcare is a reality, right? Where people want to climb that ladder, not only financially, but they want to gain more skills and knowledge. Next, faculty and clinical need, right? Our faculty do so much. I think often, and I really want to highlight the faculty piece. It's not just the healthcare faculty, right? The unsung heroes in this space are our liberal arts and humanities faculty and our STEM faculty, because they provide the development and the gateway support for students to matriculate into our healthcare programs, right? So it's twofold. Our healthcare faculty and our liberal arts faculty, right? The recruitment of faculty, helping clinical placements, and obviously the technology integration. I also want to highlight that with clinical instruction, what people don't realize is with many of our healthcare programs, and specifically our healthcare faculty, there are also licensed clinicians. So our healthcare faculty put their license on the line to educate our students. Additionally, in the clinical instruction environment, our healthcare faculty are required to not only look after our students, to train them and ensure their safety, while also ensuring the safety on patients that encounter our students during clinical instruction, right? So it is a high stress, right, high stakes environment that requires support, resources, and investment in these individuals. Ad nauseum, promoting equity and accessibility, right, for our students, for future faculty, and for our communities has to be paramount. And then lastly, modernizing our marketing and engagement, right? There are people who might have interest in becoming a healthcare professional, but have no idea where to start, right? And our marketing has to evolve with the diverse mosaic of people that reside here in Connecticut.
And I'll just make one additional comment to the opportunities here. We have a great infrastructure to build upon. Vicki Pizzuto has been leading our health careers group for some time, and they are an incredibly collaborative group. They really do support one another and have the student at the center of all that they do. I think for us to think about how big of an advantage it is that CSU has this broad portfolio for healthcare, we could do more to help educate the public. It's very confusing to understand nursing. I talk to parents, counselors all the time. It's how many ways can you become a nurse? It's a very complicated story, and we have the whole portfolio of options. So if we could centralize some communication and make it easier for people to figure out. I'm not advocating that we generically combine our programs together, because that's one of our greatest assets is the diversity of the 4 different state universities nursing programs. Each one's different. Each one's accredited under different circumstances with different, we've got something for everyone. And I think if we could get that word out, we would really benefit from that.
And in closing, I want to be clear, this recommendation centers around the advocacy of resources required to sustain and grow our healthcare programs to meet the healthcare needs of Connecticut. However, from a curricular and pedagogical and academic freedom standpoint, that remains in the hands of our faculty at our 6 institutions and their respective peer-reviewed governance processes, right? We cannot bypass our faculty to advance, to update, to expand programming and curriculum. Faculty have to be involved or it doesn't happen. Lastly, I really want to give, though I chair this effort, I'm simply the mouthpiece for our program faculty, our liberal arts faculty, our directors, our health deans across our institutions for their leadership, their skills, their advocacy, their research, and their innovation, right? And I believe that the collective talent and experiences is truly required to advance the CSCU healthcare portfolio and beyond. So I really thank Chair Gray and the board for giving us, Dean Bulmer and I, the opportunity to present to you the work that, was a labor of love, but we're proud of the results and the things that we highlighted in the recommendations and report. So thank you. And happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for President Maduka or Dr. Bulmer? Regent Balducci. Yep.
There it is. Little voice change. Thank you, John, for your presentation. I have a question, and it somehow deals with, and I didn't comment before, about online learning. Nursing is a big program. I think it's a very important one. And you mentioned 2 areas of concern, nursing and healthcare. Do you do online teaching with nursing and healthcare? Because my concern is I'm in the hospital with somebody's taking courses online and they're not learning the proper way to administer medication or whatever. And, a lot of people like to see me get the wrong kind of medication. But my point is, how do you do that? Because online doesn't seem to be the best way to do that kind of teaching.
Yeah, I mean, we look to our experts to guide us, and our faculty have been really thoughtful in this space. Before COVID, we were offering some online opportunities in these clinical programs, but they were primarily at the graduate level and degree completion level. So you'll read in the we inserted a primer on nursing for you in the report, so you could understand maybe the complexity. But there's programs that are called initial RN certification programs, initial RN licensure programs. And those are at the associate's degree level. They're also at the bachelor's degree level. That's kind of where, we haven't, and Charter Oak doesn't offer programs online in those spaces, because that's where you're going to get your clinical training. That's really, in-person clinicals are the signature pedagogy of healthcare training. But we had already at the state universities gone toward the online for degree completion. So those students who are now working full-time as RNs who want to finish their bachelor's degree, they're primarily taking research and policy, administrative courses. They're not, their clinical's done. They're an RN. Our graduate students, similarly, they're all working. They're providing your health care. If they quit their job to go back to grad school, we'd all be in trouble, because they are the workforce. So we have done some online work in those spaces where appropriate, but when it's a clinical graduate program, there is an in-person element that we retain. So those are some of the things that we've done. The last thing I'll say is the EDD program has produced over 70 doctorally prepared faculty who are teaching now. And that's a fully online program since 2016, maybe? No, even before that. I think it's been there since 2010. So we go way back with online in the right places.
And Regent Balducci, I'll add, the majority of our healthcare programs and all of our clinical programs are heavily regulated, right? So there is an external accreditor that really dictates the fate, of our programs, where we have to meet certain metrics in terms of licensure pass rates, but also the clinical requirement, the credentials of faculty, the clinical, the learning environment, the curriculum, and everything else beyond, right? So there are respectable regions. The majority of our healthcare programs answer to a higher authority when it comes to, their quality and their sustainability, right? So there's a lot of scrutiny when it comes to our clinical programs, to your very point, in terms of patient safety being at the forefront.
Yeah, I believe that there's a need for online courses to a degree, but I'm old school. I also believe there's nothing like mano a mano, sitting here in a board meeting with everybody physically here, so you can not only listen to, but see body language and get, other pieces of information that aren't going to be visible on a screen or truly effective on a screen as they do when you're in a classroom, when you're in a group meeting like this. So I appreciate that I don't have to worry when I go to the hospital, I guess.
It depends who's there, Regent Balducci, but thank you for your question. Regent Bloom, please.
Thank you, Chair Gray. I wanted to comment on a commonality between the last two reports. There are various varieties of online education, including methods of delivery, including hybrid courses and other types of courses where specialty courses are offered that may not be necessarily it can be duplicated in other institutions, but are part of the curriculum. In the medical and related areas, and I think this is one of, we tend to think of things as one side or the other. It's either remote or it's in person. In ancient times, when I started in public higher education, everything was in person. And that tradition in the West goes back to the early Italian universities, when the students gathered around the professor. And sometimes they paid the professor at that spot. In other words, that this was it evolved, obviously. in my younger days, in the late 1960s and 1970s, we started to have TV classes, studio classes, and the university appointed a university dean for television. And he was somebody I knew well, and I see him one day, and he says, "You're going to be in a TV studio, not in a classroom." And I said, "I don't think so, but who knows?" I mean, the technology, these broadcast classes, the studio classes, were in vogue for a while, and then they served a limited purpose. We now have a different kind of environment here. We have the opportunity to do things because of technology that we could not do before. The remote, what Regent Yang was talking about, the remote instruction, again, not necessarily for everybody, not necessarily for every course, but it opens, Charter Oak opens opportunities to do some things that we have not been doing before. And how does that meld with the second, with the presentation on healthcare? It's not just doctors and nurses and how one of my close relatives had a very serious medical condition this summer. And this person was being treated by quite qualified local doctors in Connecticut. And they said there is a subspecialist in the university, in the Northwestern University, whose specialty is this particular illness that this person had. And they recommended that this subspecialist be consulted online. So there was an appointment online with a clinical doctor at Northwestern, all remote in person, and because of the technology, the local doctors were able to ship the test results to the doctor at Northwestern, so he had the whole picture of what was, and he after that, this person is on his portal. So if there's any question that this person has, they can communicate directly, and the answer comes back quite quickly. Do this, don't do that, whatever the question is. Technology is going to be in all of the things we do, and it's going to be in medicine just as much as it is in any other field, and the subfields that we're talking about. I don't think this is an all or nothing. With the points that Regent Yang was making, I think are very important to the future about how we're going to do many things we're doing. I mean, I've taught remote classes. It's not my favorite thing to do, but during the pandemic, it was the only way to do it. And it opens opportunities. So we have various levels, and we have opportunities we didn't have before. And even in the remote area, it's over, we have synchronous courses, as was mentioned before, and asynchronous courses. There's a big difference between a remote synchronous course and a remote asynchronous course. So I think a lot of this, is not one of our institutions competing with another. It's the fact that we should be able to do things together. Charter Oak has a lot to offer the other universities, but it's not, it's not in anybody's interest for it to take over any of this. And that's part of why we have the committee structure. As I think Regent Yang mentioned, any creation of a new school or a new pro has to be approved by the board, and it would go through the ASA committee. So this would get a public airing and public discussion, and probably also through the finance committee for considering the financial implications of this. It's not all or nothing, and I think we have to take advantage of the opportunities across the board, and and think about things not just it's all remote, we can have hybrid courses. We have the clinical aspect of a report course in person and some of the instructional components remotely. I mean, we have various kinds of blends that are possible. So I think, I guess my point is, we need to think of this as a package that will work for the system and for our students. If my relatives' doctors are treating this patient remotely, the students have to understand how this works. Even in specialties where you normally would say, well, they have to be in the office. Well, not necessarily anymore. And you can bring in broader consultation, et cetera. My point is, the students have to be aware of the changing methods of practice and in all these fields, and how to make use of these, and make the most effective use to serve the patients, to serve the university. So again, I guess my point is, it's not all or nothing. It's not all, we're going to do everything remote, or we're going to do everything in person. There are lots of opportunities, and if we don't get on this bandwagon with these opportunities, we're shortchanging our students and the citizens of Connecticut. I mean, this relative of mine was very well served by having a remote consultation and connection with a subspecialist in a different part of the country. So that's my, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Regent Bloom, for that perspective. All the perspectives matter, and I do think the wisdom is around the table, if everyone's around the table, to try and figure out how to enable some strategies where we can do better. Regent Porth.
Very, very quickly. First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It's really impressive what we're doing and how we're looking at other ways we can strengthen what we provide and help the state as a whole and help our students. So it makes me proud of everyone who has a hand in that part of our mission. So thank you for that. You need to let the rest of the world know more about our great efforts on this. Sure. Just a really quick question. There are a significant number of newer people in the state who arrive here with degrees and training in the healthcare field. Many of them are still learning English. Can we play a role in making it simpler for those people to get their certificates or their licenses or whatever else they need, use their great talents and great knowledge to serve people in the state?
Yeah, Regent Porth, thank you for your question and your advocacy. Absolutely, right. So I think, we have a significant percentage of our students across our institutions where English is a second language. Some of us, or many of us, provide ESL or ESOL courses to break that language divide. And some of our individual programs are venturing in international spaces in terms of recruitment. We know that healthcare systems are recruiting not only outside of Connecticut, outside the United States, for individuals who are either already trained in the clinical field or those who are interested. I believe our respiratory care program at our CT State Manchester campus, a handful of students are from Jamaica, right? They've immigrated here, want to stay here and contribute. So there's huge opportunities. And again, I think the wisdom around the table, the collaboration to know the need, right? To know the supply of individuals and identifying those barriers, I think collectively we can eliminate.
We have a nice example from the Health Horizons grant. There were 3 different parts of that grant. One was to fund faculty and staff positions so we could scale and admit more students. Another was to provide scholarships to students. And then there was a third that was an innovation grant for us to try risky things. And we developed a part-time BSM program with that funding. And it is predominantly students who are English is their second language. And it really hits a sweet spot with the full-time working CNA workforce, which is a large percentage, a minority individuals and low income because of the poor salary associated with that role. And I think that we have to be bold in thinking about how expensive it is to be a part-time student in the CSCU system. There's a tax on getting your degree part-time that is very real for our students. And it, I think, stems from the appropriation and the way that's calculated for full-time people, not part-time. But we had $10,000 scholarships for each of those students with Health Horizons. I'm not sure how that program's going to do when that money goes away, because paying more to get your degree as a part-time student is a real barrier for access. So as you look at tuition schedules and you think about what we charge part-time students at the graduate level, we're having the same problem with the MSW program. With our bridge programs, we have an RT, respiratory therapy to BSRT program. We have an RN to BSM program. Those part-time rates are really barriers to a lot of students.
Regent Bloom.
It's an interesting point. We had this happen at least once before in a large-scale way. After the Cuban Revolution, when Fidel Castro came to power, a very large number of professionals from Cuba immigrated to the United States. And we had people coming in who were MDs, dentists, other health professionals. And the question was partly language, but partly what did they need to get to be certified in the United States? And that varied, but this is similar to what we're having people come in who have the training, but not the certification. So that's, I think, something,
An opportunity for us, right?
Yeah.
I know President Maduco, Dr. Bulmer will put that on there. On the agenda, but I know we're a little behind, and I want to move through the agenda in a spirited fashion, but I want to thank Regent Yang, all of his task force members, for their hard work and putting a proposed thought about what we do with our online university. And I want to thank Dr. Maduco, President Maduco, and Dr. Bulmer for their thoughtful presentation. I haven't had a chance to read all the way through it, but from what I've seen so far, I think it's very compelling. And I think it's going to be an interesting follow-up for us to give you where to go next. Thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of December 5th special board meeting. Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thanks, Sophia. Motion carries. The December 5th minutes are approved. Next, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of December 19th meeting. Is there a second? Second. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The December 19th minutes are approved. There is no consent agenda this month, so we'll move to the committee reports. Committee Chair Ira Bloom, I don't believe you have a report this month. Thank you so kindly, Regent Bloom. Audit Committee Chair Elise Wright, I believe you had a brief update report this month. Need the microphone.
Okay, the audit committee meeting scheduled for January 13th has been postponed to February 24th. So I have no report today. I expect to deliver a full report on the fiscal year 24 audit at the February 27th meeting of the Board of Regents. The reason for the postponement was related to the accounting challenges associated with the new fringe policy. I think CFO Blanchard mentioned that the last time when my sound went out. It's the new fringe policy, and we still don't have a system controller. She left in August. Her departure has had a significant impact on the audit, and she was the expert on the GASB rules related to pension and OPEB accounting. We've since hired a new controller who starts on January 24th, which is tomorrow. So we'll be in much better shape. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Audit Committee Chair Wright. Committee Chair Balducci, I believe you have 2 information items for the board this month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's true. The Finance Committee met on January 15th, and we had 2 items, information types, no voting issues this month. The first one dealt with student worker pay raises or pay increases. On January 1, Connecticut's minimum wage increased 66 cents from $15.69 to $16.35. This change impacts our student body that we have and the several different levels, 3 different job categories, actually. The total amount is approximately or almost $677,000. The other issue that was brought up dealt with the capital program review. We had heard a comprehensive presentation made to our on that system of capital program. And Regents had expressed a desire for better understanding of the process by which we developed and set priorities for the capital program, including how we, excuse me, how we fund maintenance for our $2.7 billion in capital assets across the state. We're very fortunate to have Vice President Keith Epstein walk us through that program and give us a summary about that concerning the facilities and the facility age, the type of investments made in the program associated with bonding. He also reviewed the process by which he engages the institutions and campuses on the need and priorities. The process, which I think is interesting, the process identified 10 years of projected capital improvements for us. We also learned that the amount of bonds funded and authorized by the General Assembly and have not been released to us. They've been approved, but not released because you have to go through the bond commission, of course, to do that, is $478 million, which I think is quite substantial, and we're working hard. And I know Keith, I think, is or was in the room. Certainly deserves a great deal of credit trying to get those dollars for us. And finally, Regent Yang asked for reports on our marketing and advertising spending and administrative staffing and costs at the system office. And management is committed to provide this data to the Board of Regents in the near future. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you so kindly, Committee Chair Balducci. Committee Chair James, we do not have a report this month from Governance and Nominations Committee, correct? Thank you, Committee Chair James. Committee Chair Jappanen, there's no report from HR and Administration Committee, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Committee Chair Jappanen. Regent Yang, is there a Technology Committee report this month?
There is not.
Thank you so kindly, Regent Yang. Before I call for a motion to move to executive session, let me state, well, first, let me say thank you for everyone who comes to these meetings, because everyone who comes to these meetings is committed to our future. So I'd like to thank everyone for that. And I'd like to permit you to stay engaged in the discussion. Okay. Charlene Casamento, do you want to say something?
Yes, I just would ask that the $478 million that you just stated as being unallocated is inconsistent with the data that I have. So I would recommend perhaps an offline discussion. Our number is probably closer to $360 million, $100 million difference.
Still a stout number.
Still a big number. So
I would refer,
which a piece of it relates to actually money that was authorized for the current year, which is still.
I think we need a public report in our next meeting from the finance chair after you align of what precisely that number is and how that delta was created.
The key is it's a lot of dollars.
Right.
I'm not arguing that it's a large sum.
And maybe a recommendation of how we access it. You know, we need money, and if there's money allocated, we need to go meet with somebody. We absolutely want to do that to make our facilities and physical plant better.
Understood.
Thank you so kindly. Before I want to thank everyone. And before I call for a move to executive session, let me state that the members of the Board of Regents will move to executive session for the purposes of discussion items covered in Connecticut General Statute 1-201B. No votes will be taken in executive session. Additionally, there will be no discussion, actions, or votes by the board following executive session. The only action following executive session will be a declaration of adjournment by the chair. Chancellor Tang, President Toro, Jessica Paquette, Danny Anello, Adam Joseph, Lloyd Branchard, Charlene Casamano, Karen Buffkin, Jen Person, Chris Angler, and Marilyn Albright are asked to join the board in executive session. Therefore, allow me to call for a motion to move to executive session for the purposes that I've described above. May I have a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? This motion carries. The live streaming is being paused. Thanks again to everybody. We're never stopped.
Former Secretary of State is